12.8 Wrap-Up. This chapter introduced inheritance, the ability to create a class by absorbing an existing class's data members and member functions and embellishing them with new capabilities. Through a series of examples using an employee inheritance hierarchy, you learned the notions of base classes and derived classes and used public inheritance to create a derived class that inherits members from a base class. The chapter introduced the access specifier. Protected derived class member functions can access protected base class members. You learned how to access redefined base class members by qualifying their names with the base class name and scope resolution operator, smiley face, smiley face. You also saw the order in which constructors and destructors are called for objects of classes that are part of an inheritance hierarchy. Finally, we explained the three types of inheritance: public, protected, and private, and the accessibility of base class members in a derived class when using each type. In Chapter 13, Object-Oriented Programming, Polymorphism, we build on our discussion of inheritance by introducing polymorphism, an object-oriented concept that enables us to write programs that handle, in a more general manner, objects of a wide variety of classes related by inheritance. After studying Chapter 13, you'll be familiar with classes, objects, encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism, the essential concepts of object-oriented programming. Summary. Section 12.1 Introduction. Software reuse reduces program development time and cost. Inheritance, page 500, is a form of software reuse in which you create a class that absorbs an existing class's capabilities, then customizes or enhances them. The existing class is called the base class, page 500, and the new class is referred to as the derived class, page 500. Every object of a derived class is also an object of that class's base class. However, a base class object is not an object of that class's derived classes. The is-a relationship, page 500, represents inheritance. In an is-a relationship, an object of a derived class also can be treated as an object of its base class. The has-a relationship, page 500, represents composition. An object contains one more object of other classes as members, but does not disclose their behavior directly in its interface. Section 12.2 Base classes and derived classes. A direct base class, page 502, is the one from which a derived class explicitly inherits. An indirect base class, page 502, is inherited from two or more levels up the class hierarchy, page 501. With single inheritance, page 502, a class is derived from one base class. With multiple inheritance, page 502, a class inherits from multiple, possibly unrelated, base classes. A derived class represents a more specialized group of objects. Inheritance relationships form class hierarchies. It's possible to treat base class objects and derived class objects similarly. The commonality shared between the object types is expressed in the base class's data members and member functions. Section 12.3 Protected members. A base class's public members are accessible anywhere that the program has a handle to an object of that base class or to an object of one of that base class's derived classes, or, when using the scope resolution operator, whenever the class's name is in scope. A base class's private members are accessible only within the base class or from its friends. A base class's protected members can be accessed by members and friends of that base class and by members and friends of any classes derived from that base class. When a derived class member function redefines a base class member function, the base class member function can still be accessed from the derived class by qualifying the base class member function name with the base class name and the scope resolution operator, smiley face, smiley face. Section 12.5 Constructors and Destructors in derived classes. When an object of a derived class is instantiated, the base class's constructor is called immediately to initialize the base class data members in the derived class object. Then the derived class constructor initializes the additional derived class data members. When a derived class object is destroyed, the destructors are called in the reverse order. The constructor is called first, the derived class destructor is called, then the base class destructor is called. Section 12.6 Public, Protected, and Private Inheritance. Declaring data members private, while providing non-private member functions to manipulate and perform validity checking on this data, enforces good software engineering. When deriving a class, the base class may be declared as either public, protected, or private. When deriving a class from a public base class, page 502, public members of the base class become public members of the derived class, and protected members of the base class become protected members of the derived class. When deriving a class from a protected base class, page 502, public and protected members of the base class become protected members of the derived class. When deriving a class from a private base class, page 502, public and protected members of the base class become private members of the derived class.